The next big attack on landlords. The wholesale price of gas has been falling. Those decreases are making their way through the system. It's reducing our heating bills by about 30 to 40%. These are getting reported and then we just start issuing warnings. The Russians have actually followed through on their threat. Hello and welcome, Mark Homer here, and I'm going to talk today about energy. It's a bit of an update, it's a big theme, especially for landlords. You know, we've got EPC changes on the horizon, and the biggest thing to think about is gas and electricity prices, which have been hitting all of us, especially those with HMOs and serviced accommodation. Before we start, make sure you like and subscribe. Okay, so my first topic is EPC. Loads of you have been asking me what's happening with EPCs, what standards are we going to have to meet? Well, now we know the government have said that you're going to need to meet an EPC of C or better by 2028. I think that's for new tenancies and for existing tenancies, which does give you extra time. It had been suggested that it was going to be 2025 for new tenancies, so they've now delayed that by 3 years. So if you've got a property that's, say, a D or an E, and you want to get it to a C, what is the best way of going about that? Well, you know, we've got a number of properties sort of in that category, and what I've done is sort of got hold of a really good EPC guy who goes around the properties and importantly understands what you can do specifically to increase the EPC, you know, in the most cost-effective way, because quite often you can get up from a D to a C with sort of energy-saving light bulbs, or on one we could put one storage heater in the flat, or put PV, which is you know, solar panels on the roof to provide supplementary electricity supply. And that would help us in that flat because it's a HMO. So, you know, often when you read those EPCs at the bottom, there are these major costs and people get scared by, you know, all these things that they think they're going to have to do. But it's not necessarily the case that you need to do all that to get into the next category. And importantly, if you get an EPC done by 3 different assessors, you'll probably end up with 3 different ratings. You really want to get the one with the most knowledge, who's pretty flexible and can actually help you just get into that sort of C-rated band. And I'd start now. They get really, really busy as 28 approaches. You know, lots of other people have sort of said to me, that's all very well, but mine's an F and, you know, it's going to cost me a major amount of money. Well, there are exemptions. If it's going to cost you more than a certain amount, or it's going to take more than a certain amount of years worth of savings to do the upgrades, there are exemptions. So if you just go into Google and type EPC exemptions gov, there's a government page which explains to you what the exemptions are. You can apply each year if there's a major cost and you can't do it sort of economically. I know some of our landlords, they'll apply for that exemption frequently, and it does work. The media is using this as the next big sort of attack on landlords. I think in this article they talk about a £17.9 billion bill for energy efficiency. I think quite a few landlords are selling because of this. This could be an opportunity. You can find properties with an EPC of maybe an E or an F, or maybe even a G. Get your EPC man round and find out what the minimum you need to do to get the property to a C is, and sort of crack on with that work. But start now, get it done early. The workmen and the assessors, you know, they're going to have more time, and you're going to be able to get it done in a more cost-effective way over a period of time if you start today. Just before I move on, there is a free report. Go down below and click on it. Okay, so my next topic is still around the energy theme, and it's about gas and electricity prices. So the wholesale price of gas has been falling, and as lots of you will know, in this country, electricity prices are pretty much hardwired to the energy source that is the highest cost of production. So in this country, that would be gas, because gas-fired power stations have the highest cost base, so therefore all electricity prices are linked to the price of wholesale gas. So electricity prices at the moment, you know, on the cap, you're something like 34p per kilowatt. And that has been like that for a little while. It tripled over the 2019 price. I think we were paying 13, 14, 15p, and now we're at sort of 34. So it was a significant increase. I tend to look at a forecasting outfit called Cornwall Insight. If you have a look, type it into Google, Cornwall Insight, you can log in, set a sort of free account up, and they give you predictions as to where they think the per kilowatt hour price is going. By Q3 or Q4 this year, they think that gas, which you're probably currently paying something like maybe 11 or 12p per unit, they think that's going to drop to something like 7, maybe 8p per unit. So there's going to be a bit of a drop there. Electricity at the moment, they don't think it's going to drop that much. It's still going to be sort of 33, 34 by Q3, Q4 of this year. But I suspect as the wholesale prices of gas has dropped, those decreases are making their way through the system. So I suspect into next year, electricity will start to drop. Yes, Putin invades Ukraine and there's less Russian gas available to the rest of Europe. But he's now selling that gas to the rest of Asia. Lots of it's going into China. I'm sure some of it's going into the Middle East and lots of other areas of Asia. So, what gas were they using before? And if they're not taking that supply, surely that supply is available on the world market for other people to use or other countries to use. So therefore, the sort of average price of gas, yes, it sort of spiked up pre-invasion and as the invasion happened because, for a set period of time, there wasn't enough gas about. But, lots of other sources of energy starts to fire up. You hear of coal-fired power stations coming back online and farmers building anaerobic digestion units and hydroelectric stations. All this stuff starts to come online because it takes a while to get the planning consent, takes a while to sort of plan it in. But we've had a while since the start of the Ukraine invasion, so more and more of these sources of energy are coming online now. Other sources of gas, we're getting quite a lot from Norway, but obviously if the other sources of gas from Asia and elsewhere, in the Middle East, go into the world market, we don't necessarily use that, but it brings that world price down. So the upshot of that is there are more and more savings coming. I think it's going to reduce significantly. Is electricity going back to sort of 13, 14, 15p a kilowatt? I think probably not. My guess is that it settles maybe in the 20s. My hypotheses, I like to sort of work out where I think our cost base is going over the next year, and I'm putting a sort of estimate in of about 24, 25p a kilowatt for electricity. It feels like it might settle in the low 20s, something like that. I don't have any empirical data or anything else to back that up other than that sort of halfway between where it was and where it is now. I think gas, was probably 3 or 4p a unit. Maybe it went up to sort of 11p. Feels like maybe it gets to 6, something like that. So, it's a good idea to introduce all of those sort of energy efficiencies into your properties. In your HMOs, what do? Well, we've installed Prefect, which is a brilliant system. Prefect controls, if you type that into Google, tends to work on bigger sort of blocks and things like that, but you can put it into houses. It's just sort of more expensive because there's a brain and various other sort of bits for it. It'll work on electrical systems and gas, and it's reducing our heating bills by about 30 to 40%. They've split the hot water cylinders into 2, so we're only heating half of the hot water cylinder unless more sort of hot water is demanded. And that's all sort of electronically controlled. And the sort of bones of the system is a little thermostat that goes into every bedroom in a HMO. It takes the temperature within the HMO. What it's basically doing is keeping the temperature band between sort of 18 and 23. Tenants can't put it up above 23. I don't know why they would need to. Previously, we'd have lots of tenants putting the temperature straight onto 30 and just regulating the temperature by opening the window. That would be a sort of commonplace, but now 23 is the limit. If they go out of the room, it knocks the temperature back. If they open a window, it knocks the temperature back. If they're out of the room all weekend, it brings it right back to about 16, 17, which is great until they come back into the room. If tenants get a fan heater, we had one guy, he was heating his room up to 37 degrees. We went in there, it was like a sauna, it really hit you. It was like sort of getting off a plane in a tropical country, that sort of whoosh of hot air in your face. We went to see him and, he got a fan heater in there. I think we've found about 4 in a building of about 40 or 50 tenants. So probably 10% of them did have fan heaters. So these are getting reported. We can see who they are, and then we just start issuing warnings. Obviously a fire hazard as well. So that reduces the electricity bill significantly. That system can also be put on the TRVs, on radiators linked to a sort of gas wet system. Similar sort of savings can be achieved. That system also knows when the lights are on and when the curtains are open. So, you know, as people get up, it increases the temperature in each room. And because there's a thermostat in each room and it's all tamper-proof, you're not getting some rooms hot, some rooms cold, as would normally happen with a normal sort of thermostat in the hall, or a Nest system or Hive or whatever. This is sort of way beyond all that. I think it's in about 100,000 student rooms. You know, Unite use it, Cambridge University, Bristol University, loads of them are on it. So I really like that system, and it's sort of very easy to use. In addition to all of that, there's also a sound sensor. So if they're playing loud music or making lots and lots of noise in their room, again, there's a graph every day. So if anybody else sort of complains, you've got all the evidence, you can put that to the tenant. And there's a humidity sensor. You might find there's condensation in some rooms, which can be quite annoying because the tenant might sort of blame it on you, saying there's condensation or damp in a property, but they may not be ventilating correctly. They may have had the shower on and may not be ventilating the property. So, you know, that's quite a big thing. We see that quite a lot. This humidity sensor works out on a daily basis and graphs back what the humidity's been in every room. So very, very clever, efficient system. Okay, so petrol and diesel prices and electric cars, you know, they've been moving around quite a lot. 2019, we had Brent crude prices of somewhere around sort of $58 a barrel up to about, say, 75. Brent crude is the raw material for petrol, diesel. It gets refined. If you're looking now, today, it's something like $85 a barrel. And that seems to be translating into petrol prices of about low 140s in the supermarkets, and maybe diesel's about 160. I think it was probably about 10p less before all the COVID and then the Ukraine nonsense started pushing prices up. So, you know, probably 10p less. It was probably 140 and 150 for diesel and 140 for petrol 2019. So a little bit more than it was, and that has made electric cars comparatively less attractive than they were. Electric car prices have dropped quite significantly off the back of that. Teslas and Porsche Taycans have really been falling, which is a surprise for those sorts of cars. The comparative benefit of electric cars, which actually now are cheaper to charge than running a petrol or diesel equivalent. I've done a bit of analysis the last few days. There is a good saving now, but clearly the purchase price of electric cars and the reduced convenience, charging, you know, all the other issues that come with them, having to replace the battery after a number of years. The fact that they are probably not environmentally any better, in fact they're probably worse. The battery for an electric car has to come out of the ground. Materials from South America, cobalt, stories of kids sort of digging this up out the ground, and then there's all the decommissioning of these batteries afterwards. And of course in between, all that electric that's generated, how is it generated? Fine if it's zero carbon, you know, wind or hydro or solar, but lots of it is generated using gas. Some of it, you know, may even be coal or other fossil fuels. And of course on top of that, there's the extra particulates because of the extra weight coming off the tyres. So I think all that needs to go in the round. I think a big benefit of electric vehicles is air pollution. Clearly in cities, in towns, they shouldn't emit anything that damages our health, which is a major benefit. And I suspect the technology will get to the point where it really is, you know, almost as convenient and it works, and maybe you just sort of drive your car onto a big charging pad, which I've seen at home. It charges overnight. Maybe you get, you know, 500-600 miles range out of the car, and you know the battery costs start to reduce, and therefore these huge purchase prices of these electric cars reduce. But for the moment, petrol and diesel cars are still very attractive. I suspect they're going to push the deadline for production of petrol and diesel cars to 2035, as long as they're using sustainable fuels. I think the Germans have pushed that, and I suspect we'll get in line and sort of take that as well. What are we looking at with petrol and diesel prices? Well, the Russians have actually followed through on their threat, and they're cutting production significantly along with the Saudis. And it's happened in here, you know, on April the 2nd, we've got OPEC announcing that it will cut its crude oil production by another 1.6 million barrels per day. That includes the 500,000 cut from the Russians, on top of OPEC's 2 million barrel per day cut. So, you know, oil prices have obviously gone up. They're now $85 a barrel, probably gone up, I don't know, $5, $10 off the back of this. So I suspect we're going to start seeing increases in petrol and diesel prices at the pump. So I don't know, electric maybe becomes comparatively less unattractive, and Taycans are looking cheap at the moment. There's a report in the description if you want to invest in property and start making real money, replacing your income to become financially free. Go down, have a look in the description and click on the report. Make sure you like and subscribe. That has been Mark Homer, over and out.